Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this live. I know I've been throwing loads of lives at you guys recently, but alhamdulillah, today's one is one that I'm really excited about because I want to share some thoughts with you guys in regards to one of my upcoming Sapiens Institute webinars. So if you guys haven't already, definitely go over to Sapiens Institute. That's sapiensinstitute.org and register for the webinars which have already started. And mashallah, brother Hijab, he did one yesterday. Hamza's been doing some, Sabur's going to be doing some. So definitely go and check that out on sapiensinstitute.org. The one I've been preparing for recently is coming or going to be on August the 13th. So definitely, I'm personally really excited about it because what I've done for this particular webinar is we've taken content which mashallah Hamza has developed over the years, in particular in regards to the implications of atheism on one's life. But what I've done or tried to do is develop that slightly further by adding some historical context to this. And some of the things that I've been coming across have been quite shocking. And I really believe need to be out there because I think not only would it inform us generally, or better inform us generally in regards to atheism and how atheism came to be, but more specifically, I think it will be enlightening to a lot of non-Muslims and loads of atheists too, because a lot of atheists don't know of the history of atheism. They don't know how we ended up with such ideas and ideologies. Where did they pop out from? Why did they become so popular, especially recently? So it's going to be very interesting. But what I want to do here is I want to share some ideas, give you guys a bit of a taster. Excuse me. And also, I was speaking to Dr. Steph Keris yesterday, who's a phenomenal historian, a Muslim brother, who I'm going to have on the show next week for a special on secularism and Islam. So definitely check that out as well. The live has been scheduled already. And I'm going to stop promoting stuff now and get to the topic. So basically, I was speaking to him yesterday and he sort of helped me flush out some more ideas and really clear the picture for me even more on some things I want to share with you guys here quickly. Now, we find ourselves in a world where some people are proudly claiming atheism, right? They're proudly claiming atheism, as if you've seen the thumbnail already on this video. It's an archetype of what we see, generally speaking, amongst the masses, which is people proudly claiming atheism. You have the atheist horsemen who are pushing and promoting this idea that, look, we've just grown up. We've become mature. We have figured things out. Atheism is the most rational way to go for humanity. We have evolved and developed to the point where we've come to the truth of our existence. Atheism. Not religion, not Islam, but atheism. It's the most rational way. It's the way that's most in line with science. It's the way that's most in line with reason, etc., etc. This is the type of rhetoric we're hearing and that's being spreading. But what's very interesting is, and what got me intrigued was, look, when you look into atheism, you study the philosophy of atheism, you realize that atheism is a very weak worldview. And I say this with utmost respect. My intention is not to disrespect atheists as individuals, but atheism. I have a huge problem with this ideology and worldview. And something, again, let me put this out there. Whenever I speak about atheism, if I've ever come across in a way where I've offended any atheists as individuals, as human beings, I apologize. My intention is not that. You are as much of a human being as I am, and you have as much right to the truth as I have. My objective, however, is the ideology, which is atheism. This outlook on life is highly problematic. And I just can't see human beings suffer from this disease, which is atheism, which is stripping them from what makes them human. And they don't even realize it. Right? So let me just clarify that first and foremost. Secondly, going back to the point, which was atheism, when you study this ideology, it's extremely weak. I mean, if you read Hamza's book, The Divine Reality, it becomes apparently clear how weak atheism is as an outlook, a worldview, an ideology, whatever you want to call it. But then it makes you think, why is it popular to whatever degree it is? Not that it's super popular or it's just whatever flow or sway that it has. Why is that the case then? Well, that got me thinking, and I started looking into the history of the world, especially the history of Europe in the past 500 years, and I came across some very interesting facts which I believe give us an insight, which really clear the picture for us now and make us realize, and something we're going to really appreciate at the end of the webinar, is that atheism, to whatever degree it's popular, is not popular because it's rational or it's intuitive or it's in line with reason or it's the way forward or it's the truth. No, it's there because of the context of the world that we live in. We're there because of how the world developed and the stages we went through and where we are as far as our outlook on reality is concerned. From that perspective, atheism is just the hat that fits the head the best. That's all it is. Not because it's true in any way, shape or form. So some of the quick things I wanted to mention here, or something I wanted to quickly share. Firstly, one of the things we're going to explore is when you go back to the pre-modern world, right? So the way I've divided it for the webinar, and we'll explore later, is we're going to look at the pre-modern, the modern, and the postmodern era. When you go to the pre-modern era, what I'm referring to here is the era prior to the Enlightenment. That's how I'm defining it. Prior to the Enlightenment period, which is 17th, predominantly 18th century onwards. Now, the pre-modern era, for at least most of Europe, was dominated by Christianity. Christianity had a hold on the world, on the European world at that time. So much so that it dictated and it had an influence over every aspect of life, whether it be education, commerce, law, whatever it was. Christianity dominated and ruled. But the issue was that Christianity had developed certain ideas and views which were highly problematic. Now, just to highlight one or two, one of the issues obviously was, which is well known, which is that there was a lot of corruption and there was a lot of misuse of power during that time. But also something else that was significant was that Christianity was averse to reason. A huge faction of Christianity was averse to the idea of reason and rationality. This is why in the 15th or 16th century, I don't remember clearly, you had people like Martin Luther, who was a Protestant theologian. And I mean, if you read what he said, and these are his words. And the book that I got this from, Rethinking Islam and the West, the author, he says, in regards to Martin Luther's statement, he says he never minced his words. And these are his words. He's called reason a whore. This is how he referred to reason. He referred to it as the greatest enemy of religion. And if that was one of the predominant views in regards to reason, you could see how Christianity discarded reason, did away with reason, threw reason out. But the issue here now is that reason is integral to the human being. We can't let go of reason and rationality. It's a part of our makeup. God made us rational, right? This is something, at least this is one of the things that differentiates us from other creatures and other beings, our rational faculties. But Christianity at the time was throwing it away, getting rid of it, right? So it was up for grabs. Now, there were individuals at the time, such as Thomas Aquinas, etc., who tried, after looking at and observing the Muslim world and seeing how Islam in a very beautiful way reconciled reason and revelation, he tried to do the same. In his introduction to, I think it's called the Introduction to Theology, he tried to bridge the gap, but he couldn't do it. And one of the reasons he couldn't do it was because the most fundamental doctrines of Christianity are against and averse to reason. For example, the concept of the Trinity. You can't rationally make sense of the concept of the Trinity. And you can see the stumbling blocks are there right from the beginning, from the very foundations of Christianity. So that could never be done. Hence, there was an agitation which developed over time. Come the 18th century, you had, one of the defining moments was the French Revolution, which was, if you like, that perfect display of the agitation and tension that was going on amongst people at the time, and that want and desire to overthrow the religious dogmas and these ideas that were out there, and to move to a new era of not only rationality and progress, but where man was sovereign. Man was sovereign, not God. And again, we'll explore this much more later, but quickly moving on. The Enlightenment period, one of the focuses of the Enlightenment period was to get the human being to disassociate with the dogmas of the church, but also to focus on the physical plane, on the material world, right? As opposed to the immaterial reality of existence, as opposed to God. So as one of the professors says, it was to take man from focusing on the vertical plane to focusing on the horizontal plane. That was one of the driving factors. However, I don't know if they realized this intentionally or something that would just happen naturally, but when you remove God from the picture, you remove meaning. As I've mentioned in many videos prior on this channel, you can't account for meaning, you can't account for moral values and duties. And those two things are fundamental to have any progress. And progress was one of the driving factors of the Enlightenment. It was about progress. Which type of progress I'll mention in a second. But for now, what I want us to understand is that one of the driving factors of the Enlightenment period was progress of humanity. But progress is not possible from even a worldly perspective if you don't have moral and existential foundations in place, which you can't have in the absence of God. So what we saw during the Enlightenment period was there was a mix of certain foundational concepts and ideas from Christianity and, dare I say, the Islamic world, which was the case too, which is not mentioned. And also, so it was a mix of Judeo-Christian / Islamic values and foundational concepts and ideas that were mixed with Greek rationality and reason. And it was this mix that resulted in the world that we see today. And also another thing that was interesting was that to counter nihilism, which was inevitable, something even Nietzsche pointed out later, but to counter the problem of nihilism, which is meaninglessness, what they did was they gave humanity a new goal, a new ultimate goal. Because remember, the goal of humanity as human beings, we are goal-driven, we are meaning-driven creatures. And Allah, for example, in the Quran, God recognized, well, He not recognized it, He knows this because He created us this way. Hence, reality unfolds in such a way as, you can look at it this way. The human being is created in a way which he is in line with reality, or reality is created in a way which is in line with the human being. It all fits together. So we're goal-driven creatures. God tells us in the Quran, our ultimate goal is what? Is to attain paradise, right? But what they did during the period of Enlightenment, the focus shifted from focusing on a paradise which was in another world to come after death, but they brought paradise down to earth. And the idea they pushed and promoted was, your focus now is to attain the paradise on this earth. They sold the dream of a utopian future, a perfect future on this earth. And that's what humanity was working towards. So it was a good idea, a good way of countering that sort of that nihilism which was eminent, and it was staring people in the face in the absence of God. And another interesting point was, and as a last point in regards to this, was that if the Enlightenment thinkers didn't want atheists, right? And that's another interesting thing. Most of the time we think this was the case. If you were to ask them, do you believe in God? They would acknowledge God. However, they were not interested in God. They were not interested in religion, in particular Christianity, and the dogmas of Christianity. They didn't want anything to do with this, right? So quickly moving on, we had the Enlightenment, the focus shifted to the material world, the focus shifted away from God, secularism, arose, etc., etc. Now we're moving on, we get to the 20th century, late 20th century, now there's another shift. We have the advent of postmodernism. Now this is the era we live in today. Now postmodernism is a very tricky and technical area to go into. From what I've read about it, some of the things we can say about it is that, look, we live in a world, a postmodern world, which rejects absolute truths, rejects absolute meaning, pretty much rejects everything. Yeah, and it now super focuses on the sovereignty of the human being, the individual. Man becomes God, right? Therefore, to the point now where even postmodernism rejects the ideas of the Enlightenment as well, this utopian future. It rejects all definites. It doesn't want any definites. It pushes the idea that the individual now defines reality as he or she chooses. It's all subjective. You make up your own reality. You make up your own interpretations of reality. It's all up in the air, right? And this is where we find ourselves today. Now, a quick point here, just to sort of summarize everything. The pre-modern era was where man worshipped God, right? I want you to imagine this illustration. Pre-modern era is where man worshipped God. The modern era is where man shifts his focus from worshipping God to worshipping the material physical world, right? So man worships the world. The postmodern era now is where man worships man. Man worships himself, or woman worships herself. This is where we find ourselves. Now, I want you to think about this. If this is the mood of the world that we live in today, if this is the outlook of the world that we live in today, isn't atheism a natural fit? Isn't it that hat that fits this head the best? I mean, it doesn't take much to conclude this. Because what does atheism suggest? There is no God, there is no creator. You're here once, you live once, YOLO, do what you wish. Enjoy your life, make the most of it. And what we'll see in the webinar when we go through in detail is that not only does atheism fit, or agnosticism or naturalism fit quite nicely with this outlook on the world, but it was also pushed and promoted because it met the objectives of the way that certain individuals and thinkers wanted to push the direction of humanity. It fit in line. It was a perfect fit. Not because atheism is rational or sound or has strong foundations or is the truth. No, it's because it has utility. Number one, it was useful in the direction that the people wanted to push the world in. And secondly, it just naturally fit with this outlook, this purely materialistic, hedonistic outlook on the world. So we're going to go into a lot more detail in the webinar in regards to this topic. It's such interesting stuff, honestly, guys, and it blows your mind when you think about it. And it really shows you why atheism is around. And therefore, it should also get us to think, one last thing I want to conclude on, it should also get us to think, guys, and understand, well, look, human beings by their very nature like stability. We like clarity. We are created to worship. It's a part of our nature, a part of our fitrah. But we live in a world which has done away with any type of certainty. We're in such wishy-washy grounds today, an age of pick and mix, right? Where what's going to happen, and I really believe one or two things is going to end up happening. Number one, people are going to start breaking down. And people are breaking down. But people are really going to start breaking down, right? And law and order and everything else, for that matter, everything is going to go out the window eventually. And we're going to become even more hedonistic to the point where just to keep ourselves going, we have to inject ourselves with things that give us pleasure every single moment of our existence. Either that's going to happen and humanity is going to destroy itself and lose itself completely, or people are going to start waking up and turning back to trying to find the truth. They're going to start to once again focus away from the horizontal plane and look at and entertain the vertical plane. And again, this is starting to happen. Isn't it interesting, brothers, sisters, and friends, my dear atheists, isn't it interesting that atheists themselves today are starting to look at spiritual alternatives, spirituality on atheism? You know, isn't it interesting that people like Sam Harris are writing books on waking up, providing an alternative to spirituality on atheism? Isn't it very interesting? It's because human beings by their very nature, you can't shake that nature. You can't shake the fitrah, the nature out of man. And a part of that nature of the human being is to recognize God and to worship Him. Or worship something. And the human being will end up worshiping something the other. Either, chasing pleasure, right? Or chasing something else. So that's already started to happen. And I really believe Islam is the perfect solution for humanity in this day and age. It's perfect because it doesn't have the problems Christianity had. It has that perfect balance between reason and rationality and spirituality. It gives you that complete balance. It's that perfect glove that fits the human hand perfectly. It's perfect in every way, shape, or form. As soon as human beings and people start discovering this, they would incline towards Islam. And this is what's happening. When those people that genuinely look into Islam have woken up and realized there's more to the world than the way they're living and look into Islam genuinely, they wake up. They accept Islam because it makes sense to them. They see the truth of Islam just in how it puts everything in place, right? It just makes all the pieces of the puzzle fit together perfectly. So people are doing this, but I think what we need to do as Muslims is we need to share, in particular, looking at the context of the world that we live in particular, certain aspects of Islam. Number one, who is God? And really clarify this to people and highlight to people that Islam doesn't suffer from the same logical issues and problems, intuitive issues and problems in regards to the concept of God. We don't believe in a triune God. We don't believe God became a man. We believe in a creator who is eternal, who's perfect, who's unlike anything that exists. Secondly, is to highlight how Islam provides meaning to the human being. How Islam not only makes sense of the meaning of life and provides or informs humanity of its purpose, but also how Islam provides meaning to suffering. This is something Brother Hamza, mashallah, pointed out, and something I'm adding now to that presentation we're going to do on the 13th of August. But yeah, how it provides meaning to suffering. Suffering is a very real condition every single human being goes through and can't make sense of. How Islam makes sense of this comprehensively. So we're going to look at and explore all of these things. So I just want to leave you with that. In summary, the point I wanted to get across today was, to whatever degree atheism is popular, it's not popular because it's rational or it makes sense or it's the truth. It's just there because it's in line with the way we are told we should be living our life, the outlook on life, the mood of the world that we live in today. That's the only reason. right? And the reason, and hence, therefore, people are moving away from it because it's against and averse to human nature. So yeah, we're gonna explore this, inshallah, in a lot more detail, God willing. That being said, I really appreciate you guys coming on and listening. Please do share this. Let me see if I can. See, the thing is, I'm not using the streaming software today, so I can't see your questions clearly on this. Anyway, I'm not gonna try doing the questions. If you have any questions, and if you posted them here in the live, please post them in the comment section below when the video goes up, and I will definitely get to every single one of your questions. I read every single one of your questions, and I'll address the ones I can address. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to share this video, please click the like button as well, because it really helps with the whole algorithm thing and getting the video out to many more people. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. May Allah bless you all. May God guide all of us. Until next time, take care. Assalamu alaikum.